we're now going to have. I think there is a lesson learned here of we shouldn't have. We should allow for more time for everyone. So that'll be something that will. I tried this time, but even then, still not getting it completely right. Um, I hope you've all been seeing exactly why we've been doing this, and you've been taking away something from every single talk. Up next, we're going to have Jan, who's going to be sharing with us how he's used Morta for resource planning and tracking. In every single one of these talks, especially the use case ones, it's usually the very first person who's implemented a use case within the Morta community. And Jan is the first person who's implemented anything related to resource planning and tracking on the platform. So, really looking forward to having him share his perspective with us. And he's actually been through a whole battle to make sure that we can go live today. So, I really, really appreciate him being with us and making it work. The battle being just making sure he could get on the platform that broadcasts all of this because apparently it
Just
was blocked by global IT and we had all kinds of backup plans. But yeah, really, really glad to have you with us. Thank you for joining us today.
thanks, Mo. So, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jan Artemenko. I'm senior associate in buildings in Stantec. I'm based in Reading. I've been with Stantec for about 10 years, and my background is in mechanical engineering. And then for our last couple of years, I moved to digital side of things across buildings. I typically would get involved with everything around BIM and ISO 19650. And in last years, I'm looking more into other tools what we can use for day-to-day operations. And when we get into Morta about a year ago, um, we start looking on the other uses, and one of them was resource management. So I'm gonna talk about what was the typical problem, what we had to deal with, what was our challenge, and how we decided to overcome that using Morta. And then I would like to spend most of the time looking at the live demo and try to show you how the system is set up and how it can help with resource management on construction projects. So the problem we're facing with resource management, we can separate it into, let's say, four different categories. The first and the main one is to know who's available when project changing every day. None of the project is perfect. Clients have different demands and project being put on hold. So it's sometimes quite challenging to keep everyone busy or not too busy. That feeds into the long-term challenges with planning, what we're gonna be doing in next 4 weeks, what we're gonna be doing in next 3 to 6 months. Uh, One thing it's project winning, and that's completely separate from that. This is more looking at the actual resources and people who will be delivering the projects, and that also feeds into recruiting and inform our HR team where we have gaps and what gaps we need to fill in terms of the staff. And last category is kind of make sure that we have the right people delivering the expertise on the projects. So if you now look at those four categories, how this has been typical approach was is a number of different spreadsheets. It could be standard Excel spreadsheet, it could be a different database, but nothing was really talking together. And it would cause a lot of issues. It would be specifically when we work on major projects between different offices on different time zones that become a bit more and more challenging. So our challenge was move all the Excel tables and everything into one system, in this case Morta, and give access to everyone and very quickly get everyone up to speed and then create some useful dashboards which can then inform the wider team and ultimately everyone who using Morta. So this comes with a very simple process. Our resourcing is focused about projects, so we're not looking at keeping people busy. We making sure that that the projects are delivered on time and focusing everything about project delivery. So then we would be looking on very simplified workflow where the initial resource requests would come from the project managers. So project managers would every Friday look at plan for the next week, or if they know for next 4 to 6 weeks, so as far as they can see in terms of their projects, and put their requests into Morta in terms of how many engineers they need, how much time they expect to spend on the project. Um, this would get put in the one massive database on Morta, so that's this part in the middle. And from here, we would derive some statistics and dashboards that I'm going to show you into Power BI, and also look at long-term resourcing. So when this is done on Friday, it comes from the project needs. And then on Monday, we have different resourcing groups. And those would look at where needs for projects, if any person is overutilized, and we would go through a moderation. So for instance, if somebody is overbooked or not booked at all, what can we do about it? And also we would look at the skill matrix and if the people are appropriate for the project. And this would get then pushed into Power BI and share it with the whole staff. Now we can look at the live demo, which is more interesting than slides. So this is our setup. That's what everyone can access. For people who know how Morta works, from here up, we have pages what people access, and the tables below are the backend of the whole system. So the key planning is in the resource planning, and that pull two main table. One staff summary, where we have all uh, members of the staff or different teams, and then all projects. And then discipline office and roles are used just to categorize it. This hub is set up purely for this demonstration today. So projects and teams and everything is made up to be able to demonstrate it and don't get into any issue with people names in here. So as you would see in here, we have, say in this case, about 150 people split into different offices, disciplines, different roles, and we also have assigned a role because we want to keep the data. Um, we want to maintain the history of the data. We wouldn't delete any person, and we would just change if someone leave, employed or terminated, or something like that to help us filter it when someone leave. Then we have a summary of projects. I'll give you some basic statistics about a project code, project name, who's the project manager, and what are the statuses of the projects, and then which office delivering the project, which discipline being delivered across buildings group. Now this come into resource planning, and what you would see in here, it's a raw data in the default view what we have. I'm pulling into Power BI, and then we have few predefined views which then are pulled on the pages, and I'm gonna show this in a second. But essentially how this is set up, it's one row who tells you the name of a person, a project what they're working on, and what you see on the right, it's how many days a week we expect them to spend uh, each week for next couple of months. And this would then get pushed into Power BI and other tables. So if you look at how this actually works on daily basis. So on the resourcing dashboard, we have three different tables. One is person workload. So this is done through dynamic tables, and I would see my workload only. Projects where I'm PM, I would see my projects and all the stuff working on those projects. So I can look at those numbers, and then I have all my project details. So if you start with a person workload, I can see that I'm working on three different projects. I might have here some tasks and notes. This is basically a free text box. I would see who's the PM for this project and how many days I expecting to spend on the project. So if you look at project 13, it would be 1 day this week and pretty much 1 day for rest of the year. And we don't have any data for this example for 2026, but you get the idea. Now, on the and I can change those dates in here, or we can lock it down so people who are not set up as PMs can't change the hours and they can just see what they will be working on. Obviously, you also see on the bottom a summary. So how many days? So ideally, everyone would be on 5. If it more or less, that's what happened on the moderation. If I look at projects where I'm PM, I might have some project in the bid stage. If you change the project into live, then everyone would see, and this is expectation how much time would people spend on those projects. And then on project 12, this is different member of staffs and again how much time they're expecting to spend for next few weeks. And in the bottom, there's project details there where we would mostly change what stage of the project it is. If it's stage 1 or 5, we can change the statuses from bid, live, completed, on hold. If we mark it as complete, it would disappear from all the tables in here, so it doesn't get too messy. Now, this is kind of what an individual can see and where the PMs who do most of their work, specifically, let's say on Fridays to get ready for the next couple of weeks. Then on Mondays, where we do a moderation meeting, we would look at the resource management. There are a few, the tables are essentially same, just grouped by a different column. So on project workload, we would be looking at individual projects. On staff workload, we will be looking at individual people. So if you look at all projects, we can choose any of those projects, open it, see who's doing what on the project and how many days they expect to spend on it. But more often we would look at all staff workload, and it seems like a lot for, in this case, 150 people, but typically it would get disseminated to much smaller groups. So we can look at Oxford office, there'll be less people, and then we can choose a discipline. You would see the summaries in here, where you would know 5 is okay, 0 is no work assigned. So that's one way how we can look at it. If we open it, we would then see the details for individual. Um, in addition, we have some projects where uh, those are most of the time in the bid stage, where we have an option to have unassigned work. That means if we know that some of those would be um, happening soon, we might add here. We need, let's say, a technician 2 days a week for next couple of weeks, and we have the question mark until we change it to an actual person. So we also have an overview of work which coming but hasn't been assigned to anyone yet. So when we get to a point that we see some people are not busy, we can see if they can help with something from this list. And then project details is just a list of all projects across the whole group. Now, this is where most of the work would happen, and then we have two dashboards. One is for reporting and forecasting. Those are done in Power BI on our live hub. Those are refreshed every hour or every half an hour. In here, I believe it's a refresh once a day. So this would show an average utilization across last 12 months, or we can change the date to see when we want to look at the utilization. But this kind of gives you the high level numbers across the team. You can change, look at this different disciplines, different offices. But you can look at individual details, and that there is a bit more visual, color coded. What people do, blue is over 5, so blue are when people have too much work, so we need to see what's happening there, and also 0 to 5 would be from red to green to give us some nice graphic about what's happening and kind of the heat map. And then we have a list for annual leave, so everyone know who's gonna be off and when. So we can make sure that some people or some teams don't book holiday at the same time and give us better visibility. So this would feed into planning, resourcing, and those meetings. And then for senior management and board meetings, we have certain KPIs, and those are around the revenue. So we would know what projects we winning, how where we getting a fee from, and that will be completely separate system. This is more focus about how much fee we expect to generate. And if you remember on the stuff summary, we assign rates for individuals, so we know how much they would uh, they would be chargeable per hour. So this could feed based on how projects are busy or how people are busy and towards the expected real forecast of the fee generations. Again, spread by offices, different disciplines, so there's plenty of options for that. Um, but then it's also split into higher level numbers between two main disciplines, between MEP, structure, and digital. And then what's really cool about that, when you put together the numbers, how much individual people cost or how much we would charge for those per hour, how many hours or how many days it would we expect them to complete a project. This can give you very easy to understand fee drawdown schedule. So you can look at project 57 and we would know that uh, to complete the project, it might cost us 13,500 on average, just under 3K a month. So assuming we can forecast real time and be very accurate how much would it take to complete the project, we have some forecast rather than just guessing. And then obviously from other systems, we can see how much we actually do the project for, and those numbers are then actual accurate. This is, let's say, a forecast focus around who would be working on the project for how long. And we made it to the end of presentation.
We did. We did. That was amazing. It was as inspiring as I expected it to be. Like there have been a few comments in the chat. Like everyone has been mind blown. I just want to quickly before I ask the question, I want to tell people a quick story. So when Jan started using the platform, he wanted to use the platform and then he had to go through IT and get approval and all of that and got approval I think at 5 p.m. on a Friday evening or something like that, and I was getting emails at around 10 or 11 p.m. On Friday and throughout that weekend about things like lookups and like all kinds of things, and he went on a weekend sprint in building IDPs at that point. But I always say like that to me that's always the indication of someone who's going to do amazing things with the platform. And I think everyone has been mind blown by what they just saw with the resource planner and tracker. So thank you so much for sharing that. Just one quick question because it's been asked. The employee data and like project data and so on and so forth, have you inputted? How did you get it into the system to begin with?
So there's one question what we're gonna have actually for you in next couple of months maybe. We currently run this for 150 people. When we invite people in Morta, we have to add the name and then associate the name as a tag when we invite them, so they get a dynamic table for their individual resourcing. Um, but in future, we might be looking to expand it for hundreds of people, so we might need to find a little bit easier solution how to bulk upload.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think, like, again, that's another example of we don't have to do it all in one go. So Jan didn't go, I'm gonna directly link it to, like, this question is leading to, are we linking it to the HR systems and so on and so forth? And I'm sure like that's what we'll be talking about. But that didn't need to happen as a first step because it added a lot of value regardless, and it's an area of another area that can be improved upon as you're looking to scale the implementation. So thanks for sharing that.
I think the biggest lessons around that is to keep it as simple as possible and then people use it. And to put this in perspective, the tool was built over 2 weekends and then implemented 450 people within 2.5 weeks.
Amazing.
I didn't read the comments. Is there any more questions?
I think that was the most important like question, and then there is an ongoing like quite a few people have gone. This just looks amazing, and I think it is like again that's a good example of where we still think Power BI is relevant. We don't think Power BI is irrelevant because it's ultimately designed to do a lot of these things. There's just like a really really well done implementation. Thank you so much, Jan.
Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Jan. Thanks for sharing that with us.